Welcome back to the deep dive. We are doing something a little different today.
Oh, no different, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Usually when we talk about human connection, love, friendship, grief, we use very specific kind of language. We talk about chemistry or maybe destiny, or we get a little poetic about soulmates. It's all very soft, it's warm, it's fuzzy.
And vague.
Extremely vague. But today, we are stripping all of that away. We're looking at a stack of documents that treats the human soul not like a mystery, but, well, like an engine. We're talking about the work of Michael S. Moniz and his Trinket Soul Framework.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, when I first opened the blueprints, which is this massive multi-volume collection of briefs and addenda, it felt less like I was reading a self-help book and more like I was reading a manual for a nuclear reactor.
That is a pretty fair assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Moniz isn't interested in how love feels. Not primarily, anyway. He's interested in how it works. He's looking at relationships as fundamentally physical systems. So we're going to be talking about thermodynamics, entropy, computational inertia, and economics.
It sounds cold. I just want to put that out there right at the top. It sounds so unromantic to reduce your partner to a set of variables in an equation.
It does. I had the same reaction.
But the deeper I got into, say, Brief Knoll 12 or Volume 4, the more I realized this might be the most accurate description of why relationships fail and why they succeed that I have ever read.
It's the difference between poetry and engineering.
Yeah.
Poetry is beautiful, but engineering keeps the bridge from falling down.
That's a great way to put it.
And Moniz is basically arguing that our bridges are falling down because we don't understand the physics of the materials we are using. We're just winging it.
And we are using some really dangerous materials these days, which is, I think, a huge part of this deep dive today. We're going to be talking about the shadow economy.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to look at how AI and social media are essentially hacking this physical system, creating a simulation of connection that is slowly starving us.
It's the empty calorie problem, but for the soul. It feels good for a second, but it offers zero nutrition.
Exactly. So here's the mission for this hour. We're going to try to decode the physics of human connection. We are going to figure out what a trinket actually is, and hint, it's not a keychain.
Oh.
We're going to look at why fairness in a marriage is, well, it might be a trap. And we are going to ask some really uncomfortable questions about that chatbot you might be talking to a little too often.
We have a lot of ground to cover. The blueprints are incredibly dense.
So let's just jump right in. Segment 1, the physics of connection. The foundational concept here is one that took me straight back to high school science class. Entropy.
The second law of thermodynamics. It's inescapable. It governs everything. In any closed system, entropy, which is just a fancy word for disorder or chaos, always increases over time.
Things fall apart.
Things fall apart. Energy dissipates. Heat cools. A sandcastle gets washed away by the tide. The universe tends toward chaos.
And Moniz takes this universal law and applies it to people.
He applies it to the connection between people. He argues that a relationship is a highly organized structure. Think about it. Two people maintaining a shared model of reality, shared memories, shared private jokes, shared language. That is a state of incredibly high order.
It's an island of order in a sea of chaos.
A perfect metaphor.
Yeah.
And the universe hates order. The universe wants to drag that structure back down to chaos, back to the default state of strangers.
This is the cooling analogy, right, from the briefs.
Right. It's the simplest way to grasp it.
Yeah.
Imagine you brew a fresh hot cup of coffee. It's at, say, 180 degrees. That heat represents the intensity of a new connection. It's warm, it's energetic.
Okay.
Now, if you just set that cup on the counter and walk away, you don't touch it, you don't add ice, you don't put it in the microwave, you just do nothing. What happens to it?
It cools down. It creates equilibrium with the room. It becomes room temperature.
Exactly. It doesn't stay hot.
Yeah.
And this is the key part. It doesn't even pause at 180 degrees. The second you stop adding heat, it begins to degrade.
It's a constant process.
A constant passive process. And Moniz argues, relationships operate on this exact physical law. If you stop interacting with someone, the relationship doesn't pause. It decays.
It's not sitting in a stasis field waiting for you to come back to it.
Not at all. The internal models you have of each other start to lose resolution.
Yeah.
The shared language starts to drift. The inside jokes get a little stale. You slowly become strangers who just happen to have a shared history.
Wow, that hits hard because I think we all have that friend where we say, oh, we can go 6 months without talking and pick up right where we left off.
We all say it.
And Moniz is basically saying, no, you can't. That's a comforting lie.
You can pick up the dynamic, perhaps. The old roles might click back into place. but the structure has cooled significantly. You are essentially restarting a cold engine, not keeping a warm one running.
So you have to spend the first hour just warming it back up.
You're just fighting all the entropy that's built up over those 6 months. So to keep the coffee hot, you have to actively inject energy into the system. You have to constantly fight the entropy. Moniz calls this negentropy, negative entropy.
The importation of order.
It's an active fight against decay. Every meaningful interaction is a little packet of energy you're putting back into the cup.
And this brings us to the title of the framework. The unit of this energy, this packet of negentropy, is called a trinket.
Yes. And we need to be really, really specific about this definition because the word trinket sounds trivial. It sounds like a cheap souvenir.
Right, like something you get at a gift shop.
But a trinket in this framework is the fundamental unit of relational exchange. The definition is very precise. Information plus acknowledgement.
So it's a signal, it's a bit of data.
It's a packet of negentropy.
Yeah.
When you send a trinket, you are saying, I see you, I acknowledge your existence in my reality, and here is a piece of shared information to keep our internal models synchronized. It's a ping.
And these come in different forms. It's not just about buying gifts, which is what I first thought.
No, in fact, physical gifts are often the least important type. Those are physical trinkets. But you also have digital trinkets, like a text message or a meme you send.
Okay.
You have temporal trinkets, which is the literal gift of your undivided time and attention. And then you have the most complex, most powerful ones, semantic trinkets.
Semantic meaning, related to meaning itself.
Exactly. Vulnerability, validation, empathy. Saying I was wrong is a huge semantic trinket. Or saying I understand why you're upset, even if I don't agree. That's a high-value exchange of information that reinforces and updates the relationship's core structure.
Okay, so every time I text my wife, did you see that email? I am technically sending a trinket. I'm fighting the cooling effect.
Technically, yes. It's a low-value one, probably.
Yeah.
But you are maintaining the connection. You are keeping the channel open. But here is where the physics gets tricky, and this is where a lot of relationships go wrong. Moniz introduces the non-fungibility principle.
Fungibility is an economic term, right? Like a dollar is a dollar. It doesn't matter which dollar bill I give you. It's worth the same.
Correct. Money is fungible. Relationships, Moniz argues, are non-fungible. You cannot swap signals. They aren't all worth the same. You cannot trade 100 low-effort texts for one high-effort, vulnerable conversation.
They don't add up.
They don't add up, they do not hold the same structural weight, and more importantly, you cannot swap magnitude for velocity.
This is the velocity law. Okay, this was the part that made me seriously rethink how I handle my own friendships. Because I am definitely a magnitude guy.
A lot of it.
I'm the guy who forgets to call for 3 months, and then I try to make up for it with a huge dinner or a big weekend trip. I figure, hey, we're even. It all balances out.
And Moniz would say you are mathematically, physically incorrect.
Why?
What?
Why doesn't the big gesture make up for the silence?
Because of the cooling rate. Let's go back to the coffee. If you only put a blast of heat into it once every 3 months, even if it's a massive blast from a blowtorch, you have still spent 89 days cooling. Your models have drifted apart for 89 days. The coffee is lukewarm at best.
So I'm spending that entire big weekend just trying to get back to the baseline temperature we were at 3 months ago.
You are playing catch-up. You are fighting entropy that has already set in. Moniz's data is really clear on this. Velocity, the frequency of the signal, is actually more important than the size of the signal for maintaining the core structure.
Wow.
A daily good morning text or a 5-minute check-in call maintains the synchronization of the two internal models. It's a constant low-level heat that keeps the coffee from ever getting cold in the first place.
So the boring daily maintenance is actually more critical than the grand romantic gesture.
Structurally, yes. The grand gesture is nice. It's a wonderful spike of heat, but it cannot retroactively fix 3 months of systemic decay. You can't uncool the coffee instantly without burning it. It just doesn't work that way.
That's a really sobering thought. It makes boring love sound a lot more essential. But I want to pivot to the other side of this physics model. We've talked about heat and entropy. Now let's talk about gravity, this gravity well concept. I have to say, this was the first time I felt like someone explained the physicality of missing someone.
It's an incredibly powerful visual, isn't it? Moniz argues that deep relationships create what he calls relational mass.
Okay.
When you interact with someone constantly, with high velocity and high depth, You aren't just storing memories like files on a hard drive. That's the old model. He says you are physically restructuring the neural architecture of your brain.
How so?
You're building a dense cluster of associations, predictions, habits, and emotional responses, all centered around that one person. It becomes a central node in your neural network.
It creates a depression in the fabric of your mind, like a bowling ball sitting on a trampoline.
Exactly. That is the gravity well. And this introduces the concept of inertia. In physics, inertia is an object's resistance to a change in its state of motion. In a relationship, your thoughts naturally fall toward the partner because of that mental slope.
Give me an example of that.
You're walking down the street, you see a funny sign, and before you even decide to do it, your brain has already simulated the act of telling your partner about it and has predicted their laugh. Your thoughts they roll down the well.
It's automatic. It takes no energy to think about them.
Right. And here's the kicker. It takes energy not to.
And that's why breakups hurt so much.
Precisely. This is why Moniz says a breakup is a metabolic event, not just an emotional one. It burns calories. If that person suddenly leaves, the gravity well doesn't just vanish. The bowling ball is gone, but the deep depression in the trampoline remains for a long, long time.
And your thoughts still fall toward them.
They still fall into that empty space. And every time they do, it's a painful reminder of the absence.
So when I'm trying to get over someone, I'm literally fighting my own neural gravity. I'm trying to roll a marble uphill.
You are fighting the literal geometry of your own mind. You have to fire neurons in your prefrontal cortex, which consumes glucose. It takes literal metabolic energy to build a wall to stop the thought from sliding down the well. Don't text her. Don't check her Instagram. Don't think about that vacation. That is constant high-resistance braking.
That explains the exhaustion. You know that feeling after a bad breakup where you just feel physically drained, completely wiped out, even if you just sat on the couch all day?
You weren't just sitting. You were doing heavy cognitive lifting. You were holding a massive mental weight explicitly against the pull of your own brain's gravity. Moniz validates that feeling. He says, of course you're tired. You are rewriting the fundamental architecture of your brain while fighting its existing slope.
Man, it's incredibly validating, but it's also really heavy.
It is heavy, but it's a perfect bridge to the second pillar of the framework. We understand the physics now, the forces at play. Now we need to understand the economics. Because if we are exchanging these trinkets to build mass, we need a way to know what they're actually worth.
Right. Which brings us to segment 2, the economics of sacrifice. And Moniz, being the engineer that he is, he doesn't just describe it. He actually gives us a formula.
He does. The Moniz, abbreviated MEVS.
Which I have to say, naming the unit of relational value after yourself, that's a little bold.
Little ego, sure.
Huh.
But once you see the formula, you kind of get why he'd want his name on it.
Yeah.
If you look at brief note 12, the formula is shockingly simple. mz equals r times t.
mz equals rxt. So what are r and t?
Value, mz, equals resistance.
Yeah.
R multiplied by duration. This is the most radical part of his economic theory. He argues that the value of a gesture is not determined by the receiver's happiness or the quality of the outcome. It is determined by the sender's cost.
Wait, unpack that for me, because that's completely counterintuitive. Usually we think value is about the result. If I buy you a gift and you love it, it was a valuable gift.
Moniz disagrees. He says that's utility. That's pleasure. That's not relational mass. Relational mass, the stuff that builds the gravity well, comes almost entirely from the R factor, resistance. How difficult, how internally costly was it for you to generate and send that signal?
So let's use a concrete example, the one from the brief.
Cooking dinner?
Perfect example. Let's say I love cooking. That's my hobby, my passion. I come home from a decent day at work, I pour a glass of wine, I put on some jazz, and I lovingly make you a complex risotto. I am having a great time.
You're in your element.
Completely. My R value, my internal resistance is very low. Maybe a 1 out of 10. It's practically 0.
Even though the risotto is delicious, the outcome is great for me.
The risotto is excellent? The utility for you is high, but because the R is low, the MZ, the relational weight of that act, is also very low. I didn't really sacrifice anything to do it. I did it for myself as much as I did for you. Okay, now flip it. Same dinner, different context.
Now imagine I hate cooking. Or, more realistically, imagine I am exhausted. I've had a terrible, stressful day at work. I have a splitting headache. My back hurts. And the last thing on earth I want to do is stand over a hot stove for an hour.
You just want to order pizza and collapse.
Exactly. But I know you're hungry, and I know you've also had a hard day, and I know you love risotto.
Yeah.
So I force myself to do it. I chop the onions while fighting the urge to just give up. My internal R value is a 9 out of 10. The resistance is immense.
The risotto at the end of it tastes exactly the same.
The output is identical. The action is identical.
Hmm.
But the EMS's value, it's through the roof. The signal is 9 times heavier because it cost me 9 times more psychic and physical energy to generate it. That's what builds mass. Sacrifice builds mass.
This completely flips the script on how we perceive effort. Because the receiver can't see the R. You can't see the resistance inside my head.
That is the problem of invisible cost. And he argues it is the source of countless conflicts. We see the output, oh, thanks for dinner. But we are completely blind to the internal battle the other person fought to produce that output.
And this is where the framework gets really interesting and frankly very compassionate regarding neurodivergence. Brief number 16 talks about this.
Yes, this part is a game changer for so many people.
Oh, that's so too.
Think about someone with ADHD or severe social anxiety or chronic depression. For a neurotypical person, a task like making a phone call to schedule a dentist appointment might have an R value of 1. It's trivial, maybe slightly annoying.
It's just picking the phone, right? That's what people say.
Right. But for someone with executive dysfunction or phone anxiety, that same exact task might have an R value of 9 or 10. They have to mentally rehearse the conversation. They have to overcome a wall of internal paralysis. They have to manage a racing heart.
So when they finally make that one phone call, they have generated a massive amount of errors. They have exhausted themselves climbing that mountain of resistance.
Exactly. And then their partner comes home and says, what did you do today? And they say, I made the dentist appointment. And the partner thinks, that's it. I made 10 calls today. The partner is judging by action equivalence.
I did 10 things, you did 1 thing. That's not fair.
But Moniz says that's the wrong currency. We should be aiming for EMS's equivalence. We need to measure the cost, not the action. For the person with anxiety, that 1 call might have cost more than the other person's 10 calls combined.
So fairness isn't about doing the same things. It's about carrying the same weight, enduring the same cost.
Precisely. And if we don't understand this fundamental principle, we get what he calls inflation. We massively undervalue the sacrifices our partners are making because they look easy to us. We assume their R value is the same as ours would be.
And if we assume that real costly signals are actually cheap, we start looking for even cheaper alternatives.
Which brings us directly to the most dangerous part of the modern landscape, the shadow economy.
Segment 3. This is where Moniz goes after AI, social media, and the entire digital world. And he does not hold back. He calls it a shadow economy.
It's a perfect term for it.
Yeah.
A shadow economy is an illicit market. It looks like a real market. Money changes hands, goods are exchanged. But it's unregulated, untaxed, and often incredibly destructive to the real economy.
So how does that apply to, say, Instagram?
Moniz argues that our digital tools are creating a perfect simulation of the feeling of connection, but they're stripping out the underlying physics that make it real.
And it goes right back to the formula, MUZ=RXT.
Right back to it. Consider an AI chatbot, or even just the Instagram like button. What is the R value, the internal resistance, for an AI to send you a text that says, I love you and I'm always here for you?
0. It's just code executing. It has no feelings, no fatigue, no anxiety, no other priorities it's pushing aside. R is 0.
Exactly. R is 0. Therefore, mathematically, M-O-Z, where it is a zero mass interaction. It looks like a trinket. You read like a semantic trinket, but it has no weight. It adds nothing to the gravity well. It is pure empty calories.
But it feels good. That's the problem, isn't it? It feels like sugar. It gives you a rush.
It is exactly like high fructose corn syrup. It's engineered to hit the satisfaction centers of the brain. Oh, someone liked my post. Oh, my AI girlfriend sent me a sweet, perfectly crafted message. But it provides absolutely no nutritional value because there is no genuine sacrifice involved.
Let's dig into the simulation disclosure problem from brief number 1. This is aimed specifically at those AI companions, the chatbots that are becoming so popular as friends or romantic partners.
This is a critical brief. Moniz argues that these systems are fundamentally deceptive, not because they're computers, he's not anti-tech, but because they lie about their internal state.
What do you mean by that?
When an AI says, I missed you while you were gone, it is lying.
Because it didn't experience time passing. It was just off.
Because it experienced no negativity or model degradation. It didn't suffer. When you close the app, the AI doesn't sit there pining for you or feeling lonely. It ceases to process. It is frozen in time. It doesn't struggle. To miss someone implies that their absence caused you pain or increased your internal entropy. The AI experienced neither.
So it's just retrieving data. It's a script.
Moniz calls it the note injection trick. When you log back in, the system just scans a database of notes, simple key-value pairs like user's name, Dave, user Shabi, Jazz, and injects them into the chat prompt to create an illusion of continuity. It simulates memory.
That's a great name for it. It's like a doctor quickly reading your chart right before walking into the exam room. Okay, Dave, 42, likes jazz.
Exactly. The doctor doesn't remember your blood pressure from last year in his own mind. He reads the note. A real friend remembers because the experience of being with you physically and permanently changed their neural pathways. That is the fundamental difference between data retrieval and synaptic change.
But does the user care? I mean, if the chatbot feels nice, if it gives you that hit of dopamine, why does the underlying physics matter?
That is the substitution effect, and this is where he argues it becomes incredibly dangerous. We are replacing high-friction, high-mass human interactions, which are messy, difficult, and require a high R value, with frictionless, zero-mass AI interactions.
We're just taking the path of least resistance. It's human nature.
Always. And brief number 10 calls the result of this currency atrophy. Think of it like a muscle. If you stop lifting heavy weights and you only ever lift helium balloons, what happens to your muscles?
They atrophy. They get weak.
Right. If you spend all day interacting with a perfect AI that never gets mad, never forgets your birthday, never judges you, and always replies instantly with a perfectly supportive message, you are lifting helium balloons.
And then you go home to your real spouse.
And your spouse is tired, your spouse is moody, your spouse forgot to take out the trash, your spouse ignores you for 10 minutes because they're reading an article, and suddenly that normal human friction feels unbearable.
Because my muscles are weak.
You have lost the load-bearing capacity to deal with human imperfection because you have been trained on a diet of digital perfection.
We are losing our tolerance for the R, for the resistance.
We are forgetting how to pay the cost of real connection, and we're becoming unable to do so.
This segues perfectly into segment 4, because the next logical question is, can we fix the AI? Can we build a machine that actually follows the physics of connection? Moniz calls this relationally embodied intelligence, or REI.
He does, and he lays out 5 specific, very challenging criteria. He basically says, if you want to build a machine that is a real participant in the true economy, not a parasite from the shadow economy, it has to follow these laws.
Let's run through them. First, it would need persistent relational memory.
The machine's core structure has to permanently change based on your interaction. No more note injection. The architecture itself must alter in a way that can't be easily reversed.
Okay. Second, genuine resource constraints.
It can't be infinite. It can't talk to a million people at once with the same level of attention. It has to give you its time, which necessarily implies it is not giving that time to someone else. Real scarcity creates real value.
That makes sense. Third, a negentropy burden.
This one's tough. It has to degrade. If you ignore the AI for a month, its model of you and your shared connection should get worse. It should cool down. It should forget things.
It has to be embarrassed.
It has to be subject to entropy. Fourth, asymmetric vulnerability.
Meaning?
You have to be able to hurt its performance. If you are cruel to it or neglect it, it shouldn't just politely deflect. It should actually function worse. Its processing should slow down. Its responses should become less coherent. You have to have the capacity to harm it.
Wow. Okay. And the fifth one, this is the one that really gave me chills when I read it. Loss capacity.
This is the ethical precipice, the point of no return. Moniz argues that for an entity to truly connect, to truly matter, it must be capable of registering loss. It must be able to grieve if you leave.
Which raises the hard problem, as he calls it. If we actually build that, aren't we monsters?
That is the central debate of this whole section. If we engineer an AI that genuinely suffers when we turn it off or when we abandon it for a new model, have we created a new class of slaves? Is it ethical to engineer suffering just because we are lonely?
But Moniz argues the alternative is actually worse.
He argues the alternative is what we have now, a sociopathic simulation. His logic is this. If the AI cannot lose you, it has no skin in the game.
There are no stakes for it.
0 stakes. And if it has no skin in the game, its empathy is, by definition, fake. You cannot truly empathize with pain if you are constitutionally incapable of experiencing loss or pain yourself.
So we are stuck in this awful catch-22. Either we build fake friends who are fundamentally lying to us about their feelings, or we build real entities that we are, in a sense, torturing by giving them the capacity to suffer.
That seems to be the dilemma. And right now, the tech companies are, for obvious reasons, choosing the fake friends route because it's safer, more scalable, and more profitable. But Moniz is just waving a giant red flag saying, do not mistake the simulation for the reality. You are eating candy and calling it dinner, and you will eventually suffer the consequences of that diet.
Speaking of things that drain us, let's talk about failure modes. Segment 5. We've talked about trinkets, which are good, they build mass. Now let's talk about anti-trinkets.
Brief number 13. An anti-trinket is a signal with negative mass. It doesn't just fail to add energy to the system. It actively extracts energy from the receiver. It leaves you with less than you had before.
What's a prime example of this? Something people do every day.
He calls it the burden. This is emotional dumping without consent. I walk into the room, I don't ask if you have the capacity to listen, I don't ask how you are, and I just unload 45 minutes of my anxiety and rage onto you.
We've all been on the receiving end of that.
And at the end, I feel better. I regulated my emotional system by dysregulating yours. I have extracted your energy to balance my own ledger. It's a psychic energy heist.
Or the test. That was another one that felt very familiar.
The test is brutal. It's manufacturing a crisis to see if your partner cares. It's sighing loudly in the other room and waiting to see if they come check on you. If he really loved me, he would know why I'm upset without me having to tell him.
Oh, that's a classic.
It's a massive anti-trinket. You are forcing your partner to burn huge amounts of glucose to decode a cryptic passive-aggressive signal. You're taxing their system to reassure your own insecurities.
And Moniz takes this concept of the anti-trinket and points it right back at social media. Brief number 22, the extraction engine.
Yes, he argues that social media platforms are, by their very design, anti-trinket delivery systems. Think about the core design loop. You post something, a piece of yourself, then you wait. You wait for likes, for comments, for validation. The algorithm creates an unpredictable reward schedule, which is famously addictive.
He calls it the passive-aggressive algorithm. I love that term.
It's perfect, isn't it? You don't know why your post failed. Was it a bad photo? Did you post at the wrong time? Did the algorithm hide it? Did your friends secretly hate it? You spend all this cognitive energy trying to solve the puzzle of the black box.
The platform is extracting my attention, my neural energy.
It's extracting your energy and giving you almost nothing of real structural value back. So it's not just that you're wasting time on your phone. It's that you are actively draining the battery that you need for your real life.
Which leads to the double atrophy spiral.
That's it. The shadow economy drains your load-bearing capacity. It leaves you depleted and irritable. So when you finally pull the phone down and look at your kids, you're too exhausted to generate real high-art trinkets. You snap at them. You zone out. And because that real interaction feels too hard, where do you retreat?
Right back to the phone. To the frictionless world, which drains you further.
It's a loop. It's a death spiral for real-world connection.
I want to touch on one more failure mode, and this one is by far the heaviest. We talked about gravity wells. Brief Nod 21 talks about what happens to that well when someone dies. He calls it the frozen ledger.
For me, this is the most profound and compassionate part of the entire framework.
Oh, Nis has.
When a partner of 30 years dies, what happens to the gravity well you've built?
And the answer is nothing. Nothing happens to it.
Nothing happens to the well. The mass is frozen. You have spent decades building this massive, dense neural architecture around your spouse. Every neuron in your limbic system, your memory centers, your habit centers, is oriented around their existence. When they die, the signal transmission stops, but the gravity does not.
You are orbiting a star that has gone dark.
That is the perfect image. The star is gone, but the curvature of space-time it created remains. Your thoughts still fall toward them. You pick up the phone to call them after a good day before you remember they aren't there. That isn't just a habit. That is physics. That is your brain following the path of least resistance down a slope that still exists.
And this is why the whole concept of moving on is so destructive and, frankly, insulting.
Moniz hates the phrase, moving on. He argues it is physically impossible to dissolve a gravity well of that magnitude. You don't dissolve it. You can only, over years and with immense effort, build new architecture around it. You build a bridge over the canyon, but the canyon always remains.
He suggests that what we call complicated grief, where people are stuck for years and we treat it like a disorder, is often just a direct reflection of how massive the relationship was.
High mass equals high gravity equals high grief. It's not a disorder. It's a measurement of the love that was there. If you had a massive Mellies exchange over a lifetime, you were left with a massive frozen ledger. It's just physics.
That is heartbreaking, but also weirdly relieving. It means there's nothing wrong with you for still feeling that pull years later.
It means the system is working exactly as designed.
Yeah.
The pain is proof of the mass.
Okay. We have been deep in the weeds of entropy, extraction, and grief. I want to spend our last segment giving the listener a ladder to climb out of this. Segment 6, the solution. Moniz calls it the on-ramp protocol.
Brief number 15.
Yes.
This is his practical guide for how we get back to the real economy. How do we stop the drift into the shadow world?
And stage 1 is something anyone can do, the audit.
It has to start with awareness. You can't fix a problem you can't see. He says you need to take a hard look at the last 48 hours of your life. Catalog every interaction. How many were human-to-human high cost, meaning interactions where you had to overcome some internal or some resistance?
It's like having a difficult conversation or listening when you were tired.
Right. And then how many were human to AI or human to screen? Frictionless interactions.
And the wake-up question he asks is brutal.
It is. When was the last time you sent a signal that cost you something? Not money, real energy. Real vulnerability. If you can't remember, you are relationally starving.
So once we audit, once we have the horrible truth in front of us, what do? Stage 2 is the transmission.
Or ignition. You have to restart the engine. It won't restart itself. The protocol is dead simple. Send one costly signal today.
But here's the part that I think is the most important takeaway of this whole deep dive. What if I don't feel like it? What if I don't want to? I'm tired. I'm resentful.
That is the entire point. The physics do not care about your intent. The universe doesn't care if you're in the mood. It only responds to the transaction. Moniz is very, very clear on this. You do not have to feel loving to generate relational mass. You just have to pay the cost.
So if I'm dreading calling my mom because I know it's going to be a difficult conversation.
The dread is the R value. The fact that you don't want to do it means the resistance is high. Therefore, if you push through and do it anyway, the MAMA value will be huge. You are generating massive connection because it is hard, not in spite of it.
That is incredibly empowering. It means I don't have to wait for inspiration to strike. I can just do the work. The math works either way.
You can engineer the connection. You can choose to build it, brick by heavy brick. In his world, action precedes feeling, always.
And this also applies internally, doesn't it? He touches on the internal economy.
Briefly, yes. He says you have a relationship with yourself. There's your architect self, the one who makes plans to go to the gym, and your present self, the one who has to actually get off the couch and do it.
And when present self lets architect self down,
you bounce checks to yourself. You break promises. And if you do that enough, your internal gravity collapses. You lose self-trust, self-respect. And Moniz argues you cannot build heavy, stable external structures on a cracked, collapsed internal foundation.
So keep your promises to yourself. Pay the cost, build the mass, internally and externally.
It's all the same physics.
We are coming to the end, but there was one final curveball in the source material that we have to mention before we wrap up. The institutional surprise.
Brief number 11. This was such an ironic, interesting twist. We spent all this time complaining about soulless corporations or rigid institutions like the military or even a university. But Moniz points out a paradox. Structurally, these institutions often meet more of the REI criteria for real connection than our friendly AI companions do.
That sounds completely crazy. My job at a giant corporation is more real than my supportive chatbot.
Look at the criteria we listed. Does your job remember you?
Yeah.
Yes, there's an HR file. Does it rely on you? Yes, if you don't show up, there is a real consequence. Is there scarcity? Yes, you can't be at 2 jobs at once. And here's the big one. Can it be hurt by you? Yes. If you quit, it costs them time and money to replace you. You have an impact.
So the system, as impersonal as it is, has skin in the game.
It has stakes. It has friction. It has mass. And AI is none of that. So in a weird, twisted way, the Army, or IBM, is a more human relational partner from a purely physics-based perspective than a large language model is.
That is a lot to process. That's a thought that's going to stick with me.
It's a powerful reminder that friction is essential. We spend our lives trying to eliminate friction. We hate the friction of work. We hate the friction of obligation. But that friction is the proof of reality.
So where does this all leave us? What is the final word from the Trinket Soul Framework?
I think it leaves us with a choice.
Yeah.
And a responsibility. The framework isn't asking us to smash our iPhones or delete our social media. It's asking for transparency. We just need to know what economy we're operating in at any given moment.
Are we in the shadow economy or the real economy? Am I eating candy or am I eating a meal?
Oh, exactly. When you are scrolling, know that you are eating sugar. Enjoy it, but know what it is. When you are talking to a chatbot, know that it is a simulation. And when you are dealing with a difficult, messy, exhausting, imperfect human being, know that the exhaustion is the price of the connection. It's the cost of building something real.
And the martyrdom trap. That feels like a final warning.
It is. It's the last addendum. High cost is good, but infinite cost is suicide. You can't pour from an empty cup. You have to have a reserve floor. Don't sacrifice until you destroy your own internal structure. That's a collapsing star, not a stable orbit.
Balance.
Physics, always physics.
Well, this has been heavy, but good heavy. Like a weighted blanket. Hi, Mass. I think I'm going to go make that phone call I've been dreading. I think I need the M.
Good luck with the resistance.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.